You are now rocking with the 3-yard play.
Right.
We just figured out a 3-yard play, fam. We're gonna win every time.
Yeah.
Hit that link with you. Come on in.
You're tuned into the 3-Yard Play podcast. Well, the only question is, does it work for you?
Trail got wings, bitch.
We been working all year. It's game time. We all here. We turned up all year. Cause we finna be the champs this year. We been working all year. It's game time. We all here. We turned up all year. Cause we finna be the champs this year. We live in weight just to hold up the trophy. Flag on the plate, cause them haters can't hold me. And 1, 2-a-days and run up the biggest hill just to sharpen up my skills. They hit the scoreboard first, I had to hit them drills. Time I get around the corner, they gon' see my new wheels. After practice, till the lights come on, till they bust ride out and they gone. That rally had us help, my teammate down the steps. Player, we got plays you ain't even seen yet. I post up and fade away like graffiti. Just don't claim it's love when you see us on TV. We been working all year. It's game time. We all here. We turned up all year. Cause we finna be the champs this year.
3-Yard Play podcast.
We been working
brought to you by reality.
all year.
Where it is what it is.
Game time.
You get what you get.
We all here.
So comment and let us know where you live.
Cause we finna be the champs this year.
What up, what up? What's good, everybody? Welcome to the 3-Yard Play podcast. This your boy Trip. What's going on,
LJ
fellas?
in the building.
T-Moss.
What's up, what's up? Now, we wanted to approach something different this week, man. Take kind of a more lighthearted approach to things, but all three of us went to private school together. It was a pretty prestigious college prep school. And one thing we recognized when we got there is that things were very different, than the schools or the neighborhoods we were used to. So, fellas, I just want to open up the floor to you guys and figure out, when did y'all realize y'all weren't in Kansas anymore as y'all rode up on the grounds for the first time?
I think if I had to start, I would have to say, my first party. We used to go into like getting away from the parents. You know what I mean? Like going to the skating ring and things like that. But not necessarily coming to the parents. But I'll never forget. I got invited to a party, and I didn't think anything of it. So when I showed up, it's a nice neighborhood, real nice. Everything was nice. So I knocked on the door, and this older gentleman opens the door, and I'm like, I'm in the wrong place. I'm sorry. I'm trying to bail out. He says, no, you're right. You're here for the party. I was like, yeah. I guess, it's like, oh yeah, come on in. This and that is there, so they were more, I say, their philosophy was, you're going to do it anyway, basically. And we rather be around and keep it monitored. And that was something
Controlled environment approach.
right, in a controlled environment. And so, people think that all the bad stuff happening at the public school, or all the crazy stuff going on in the public school, but really the private school doing is just the same thing. It's just in a controlled setting with basically the over chaperones, parents or whatever, just kind of like watching over. But that was something different for me. I was like, you're gonna be here. Oh yeah, it's great. Have a great time. It's like, okay.
Yeah, man.
Sick.
Similarly, boy, my first time, first of all, when I pulled up on that campus, I already knew I wasn't in no Kansas no more.
Oh, yeah.
So
Right.
classmates with 535 BMWs, 735 BMWs,
Oh yeah,
top
yeah.
Porsches, 16 years old. Went to the
Yeah.
kind of like you went to like you used to have a team, like a class party for all the people who were turning 16 in the fall. Let's just put it that way. Then one of my classmates, he was like, "Oh yeah, we're having that party at my dad's dealership." I'm like, "Whoa!" All right, I knew folks whose dad was trying to sell cars at the dealership, not own the whole dealership. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what's that whole disconnect? And it was no big deal to nobody else. You know what I mean? I'm up here overwhelmed, just now kind of getting to know folks, and just like, man, this ain't what I'm used to right here, bro.
Right.
That was a huge culture shock for me right there, and then this is the other part. Like I was always about trying to be fresh to death. Where I had polo socks, shirt, everything, man. And I'm out there trying to keep it clean and pristine. I go out there in the courtyard at the school, man. They out there playing flag football in the polo, ripped to the side, got holes in the sleeves.
Really living in it.
Man, that's that fresh gear, but I realized real quick, man, that ain't nothing but clothes, boy. Well, what I was putting so much value on, it was just clothes to them. I was like,
yeah.
What about you, Trip?
I think for me, it kind of lines up with what you were saying in that dress code. That was the first thing I really noticed. When I was recruited from public school to attend, they kind of said it in a roundabout kind of way. I think I mentioned at one point back to school shopping, just talking about being excited about the experience of going to a new school. And they were kind of like, yeah, hold off for you really go crazy on your back to school shopping. You might want to see how they dress or kind of the way they do it there. It's a little different. And when I got there, I was just so shocked to see so many people, although the school didn't have a uniform, see so many people basically in the uniform. And pants and same kind of shirt, khaki pants, same kind of shirt. And it was like, man, it was real subtle things. But if you didn't have these things, then it was noticeable that you didn't have these things. So that was something that was interesting to me. And then also, I guess as we went on in schools and got to high school, and even at some point in junior high, seeing how some of the wealthiest kids dressed the bummiest. And you had some of the richest kids shopping at Value Village.
I was about to say.
And all that stuff to where it kind of showed you like fashion is also just what you like, because you have some people that, man, these folks got a whole trust fund on full and they dressed in about, they probably got $17 outfit from head to toe, but at the same time, like Thomas was saying, they jumping into a Benz or a Beamer, or seeing kids' first car being other people's dream cars. That's wild thing when you see somebody parents just gave them a Lexus or this or that, and other people, that would be shit where they would strive for their whole life to try to achieve something like that. So it was just kind of culture shock in that regard,
Right.
That's cool because I do remember writing a whole essay about that experience. Man, where in the hood, man, getting gold chains, rings, Cadillac with rims that represented wealth, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just kind of changed my whole outlook on just on what that really meant. You know what I mean? In terms of trying to keep up with the Joneses, there wasn't no keeping up.
Mm-hmm. That's why when you realize that that level of wealth, the level of wealth was beyond the way you see, like, man, you ain't really finna catch these folks. Like you might get a start and you could begin something new for your lineage, but you might not catch some of these folks where they at right now. They too far there with it. But question now along those lines, when did you all realize that there was a game being played? That on some level there was we were children in school and we were students, but as they were talking about college prep and just the whole idea of prepping us for the world, what were things that kind of made you realize, like, wow, overall, this is an interesting, kind of cultural experience, and now I'm getting a glimpse of what it might be when I step out the door?
Yeah, I think for me, as an athlete, it kind of opened some different doors that put me around different groups of people. You know, people who were more affluent, who had influence on various arenas that you know I probably would not have been in. So I knew then at that moment, from just a sports standpoint, that okay, this is different. You know that um, this is going to put you in some places that you probably couldn't have gotten into uh, outside of this. Um, Even academically, I also knew that uh, you know it was going to give me an opportunity to go to some of those bigger schools if I could compete. You know, if I could compete academically. So I mean, it was definitely an experience, and just knowing that like all the different people you were walking around, sometimes you didn't even know. Like, you know, I remember I ain't gonna say too many names, but I know uh, some major politicians seeds went through our schools. You know what I'm saying? And it was just not different to rub elbows with those types of people. You know. So I knew then, yeah, okay, we're in a different spot, and it's a different game here.
Yeah, man, I really don't know how to process mine, but the big moment was always going all the way through school up until like I said, I came into the private school set in about 10th grade. So I'm pretty much kind of established myself. Same way with you in terms of that connection with the student athlete piece. But
Right,
prior to coming them out, all A student, always on the road. It wasn't no other option. You know what I mean?
right, right,
That's
right.
just what it's going to be. So when I walk into that place, they say, hey, well, you know, your grades might suffer and you might not get all those things. I'm like, what are you talking about? That ain't no standard in my house where it can suffer. And
Yeah,
so I was treated accordingly, you know what I mean? So like, oh, I'm going to be less than, you know what I mean? No, that wasn't, now don't get me wrong. Oh, my grades did drop, but my mindset, my mindset went on that I'm supposed to be mediocre. You know, I'm
right,
supposed to
right.
get those things, but in that process, I saw kids with perfect SAT scores. Then you had some that might miss 2 or 3, and then the one with the perfect score got celebrated. But because you missed one, you don't measure up. And I'm like, bro, it's a game being played around here in terms of
Right.
picking and choose, implicit bias, I guess I use that term, where they can look at you and not necessarily celebrate you. You know what I mean? And I knew then it was a dog eat dog world. You kind of gotta get in where you fit in, find your people, and find your support systems, because everybody wasn't treated equally, and that wasn't necessarily based on race, class. It's I guess happenstance a lot of times.
Mhm. What
I
about you,
did.
Trill?
I think for me it came twofold. Like at first, the thing I noticed was I had to apply myself, and before where I was at, I just accepted. I did not have to apply myself if I was really honest, and that was a real game changer and something that I had to admit to myself. Like, you're not gonna be able to just coast and be ahead of the based on just natural intelligence. You have to work hard because you're in an environment where more students that I don't want to say smarter, not smarter as much as maybe they had that much more training and going into it, that they're prepared for this and they're more used to it. They've been here from elementary school. They've already gotten this style of learning, and it's
Yeah.
different in the public school system. I felt it was more so geared to the slowest person and just trying to keep up, make sure no one really got left behind. And in the private
Mhm.
school setting, I mean, those who excel were rewarded. And you really
Mhm.
got to see, like, there were some kids that once you talk about people making those perfect scores, we also got to see those people worked harder than a lot of the folks. Can't say
Right.
that there was always a handful of kids in each class that were just known. These people are all, but
Oh yeah.
none of those people got anything free. And being a student
Right.
in class, you knew that. It wasn't, the teachers liked them. Teachers liked them better because they were more prepared every day than anybody else.
Right.
But
No,
it wasn't that the teachers giving them stuff. They actually studied and did the work. So that was a big eye opener. And then secondly, going into their homes, having friends and going to people's houses. That really showed me, like, wow, man, these people playing with a different level of money. I'm coming out of my house and growing up in the neighborhood I was living in, staying with my mom, like, I would hear her talk about finance, and hear talk about certain numbers of things, and I had a scale in my mind of what things cost and what was not expensive. So to go places, and now these people could take you on a whole vacation with them just because you happen to be their kid's friend, or they're going out to a whole restaurant. You just get to go to the restaurant because you just over there. Or like, these folks, they knock around cars, something that is like, yo, if we had one of these for our family, that would be turned, So it was just interesting seeing you go in homes where you're like, man, what is the monthly mortgage? Like my folks talking about the mortgage and the bills, but what is the bills for this? You open somebody's cabinet, they got all the cereals. You know what I mean? Like,
all the
cereal. We got the cereal, bro. You got a cereal that's chopping for purpose, bro. That's what Rich man. You got the folks cabinet, bro. They got all the cereal. What do you want?
Whatever you want, get it.
You want, So that was a different mindset of just a wealthy mindset,
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Real two quick things. One of the things I learned was adapt. I had to learn to adapt because I did get exposed. I got exposure to some new ways of doing things in terms of and had to try and figure out how to assimilate. To your point, private school, man, I just kind of coasted through, and I had those A's. I had to kind of grind it out, and I had to learn new techniques and ways of doing things to kind of make sure I hit my marks, my personal marks. But then there's one, like you talking about visiting folks. I remember standing outside in the courtyard, and one of my I call her my home girl, but one of the white girls up there, she got a brand new Jeep Wrangler, with the red bow on it, and I'm sitting up there like, man, I sure wish my mama do that for me. She said, looked at me and she said, you know what, Thomas? I wish my parents came to all my stuff like yours. And boy, you just want to talk about one of the most humbling moments of my life. That story sticks with me as I move forward. But in terms of that family, I had family engagement. They had a lot of stuff given to them, but a lot of times they would yearning for the love, time, and attention. I'm up here looking for material things, so it kind of humbled me a lot. And from that perspective,
yeah, I think.
And we're approaching the closing time too. I ain't trying to cut you off. Go ahead, but
real quick. I just think touching on what you was just saying. A lot of times we look on the outside. We were looking on the outside and looking in, thinking, man, this is just the greatest thing in the world. But what we didn't realize too was there was a lot of sacrifice to get to that level, and a lot of time consuming, efforts that probably pull them away from the normal interactions with family. You know what I'm saying? And you get so used to providing that sometimes those things lack, or that's seen as something that you got to put on the back burner to go get or keep up the standard. You know what I'm saying? So that was something I did see too. Yeah.
And I'll say just parting thought. And kind of playing off of what both of you all said is just that the whole idea that money doesn't always equal happiness.
Right.
Money can afford a lot and take away a lot of things and make you not have to worry. But then when you have money, it also creates its own new stressors as well.
Right.
And then also just that whole idea of that sacrifice, and the idea of working smarter, not harder. Because I was in households where I felt like, man, my parents, work hard. And I don't really see how these folks busting a sweat, but they working and they're working in the way that the returns are great, and they seem to have a system, or somehow they're going about it in a way that no man has to be extraordinary, but every man builds upon what was laid before him, and or within the community, people work with the goal of overall benefiting the community, and it helps the individual. And so that was something that I just kind of picked up in being in different households and just seeing like, okay, they working with a vision they might not even see in their lifetime, So overall, man, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. 3R Play Podcast. Y'all know we try to keep it at 15 minutes, but hey, this is a good one, man. This is a good topic,
Yeah, so, we'll bring it back and touch on some of the more things I think we had to, adapt to on the next one. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And we encourage y'all to weigh in, man. Please comment, man. Like, share, subscribe, and let us know your experiences, be it workplace, academic, wherever, in settings in which you had to go further than the neighborhood and just see something different.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
You see, the thing that separates us from every other group of slaves is the fact that
Yeah, thank y'all for tuning in today and every day. And remember to keep running your 3-yard play.
Look at them mouths, we feel like flowers, they gon' grow. We gon' water the season, watch that harvest flow. I've been crunching numbers.
Cause we know heroes are made in the off season.
There should be no reason
and grinding slow is better than crashing out
we
for
get that
dough.
money bound for what we don't want it.
Let's say, young brothers, remember,
Don't fulfill the promise.
I ain't never
3 yards every day.
Mr. Officer,
They can never
I can't
stop.
read that narrative, so ain't no need of calling us. You ain't never had to tell your kid being black was a sin, cause his skin was reflected through America. Taking care of us was just a handout, right? But it was fair when free labor was just as nice. I can bet you your life, your kids living alright. Cause me and mine had to
been
do
rocking
it or
with the
die every
3
single
Yard Play
night.
Podcast.
I get mine, yeah. You get up, yeah. But together, nigga, we gon' get some more, yeah. Look at them mouths, we feel like flowers,
So
they
like,
gon' grow.
subscribe,
We
share,
gon' water the
and let's
season, watch that
discuss.
harvest flow. I've been
What's up with
crunching
us?
numbers, winter, fall, spring, and summer. There should be no
Thank
reason
you.
that the baby
Tuning
never
into
hunger.
3
When
Yard
we get
Play
that money
Podcast.
bound for what we don't run it. I only
Put a
pledge
focus onto
allegiance
it.
to go fulfill the promise. Time and time again.